I'm trying not to cry. I'm just like, I hate suffering. I've suffered myself, and so I hate to see anybody suffer. And so this is my mission. This is what I'm made for. And I'm just one guy. I can't do everything, but I can do a lot. I always try to help people say, how can you turn your worst day into your best day?
Please help me welcome to the stage, Tony Robbins.
He's the nation's #1 life and business strategist.
He's worked with royalty, elite athletes, Oscar winners, scientists, and everyone in between
to overcome their limitations and accelerate change.
Can you take us back to the environment that shaped you into the man that you are?
So I grew up in a tough environment. I had 4 different fathers. My mom, she drank alcohol and took prescription drugs. And we had no money, no food. And then the thing that changed my whole life was a knock on the door on Thanksgiving. There was this tall guy standing there with 2 bags of groceries and an uncooked frozen turkey in a pan. And my dad saw this man. He said, "We don't take charity." And he went and slammed the door on the guy. But it became a very useful distinction for me about how he and I processed that day differently. Because there's 3 decisions you make every moment of your life. And the real problem is the story you have. For example, that day, my dad's focus was the fact he did not fit his family, and he was worthless. However, I took that as stranger's care. And so the story is the belief you've told yourself over and over, because belief is the invisible force that controls everything in your life. And then there's the 3rd decision, what am I gonna do? And so what I decided to do is someday I'm gonna do this for others and end suffering where I can. And so I'm gonna show you how to get clear on what you really want, figure out what's been stopping you, put the plan in place, and teach you the most important thing that's made me successful.
And I don't think people fully realize the significance of how many of the most influential people on planet Earth you have worked with and continue to work with. What is the pattern that you noticed in those people?
So I found 4 things with them. And the first thing is,
listen, my team gave me a script that they asked me to read, but I'm just going to ask you in the nicest way I possibly can. Thank you first and foremost for choosing to subscribe to this channel. It is, it's been one of the most incredible, crazy years of my life. I never could have imagined. I had so many dreams in my life, but this was not one of them. And the very fact that these conversations have resonated with you and you've given me so much feedback is something I will always be appreciative of. And I almost carry a weight, a sort of burden of responsibility to pay you back. And the favor I would like to ask from you today is to subscribe to the channel. If you would be so obliged. It's completely free to do that. Roughly about 47% of you that listen to this channel frequently currently don't subscribe to this channel. So if you're one of those people, please come and join us, hit the subscribe button. It's the single free thing you can do to make this channel better. And every subscriber sort of pays into this show and allows us to do things bigger and better and to push ourselves even more. And I will not let you down if you hit the subscribe button. I promise you. And if I do, please do unsubscribe, but I promise I won't. Thank you. Tony, I was shocked. It was so surprising to me that you had the childhood you had based on the outcomes that you've accomplished in your life. And as someone that has followed you for a very long time, I imagine that there's many other people that have followed you for a very long time that have no idea about the early context. For those people, can you take us back to the environment that shaped you into the man that you are?
Well, I think, I grew up in a tough environment. I had 4 different fathers. My mom was a very intense and passionate woman. We never had any money. We were very, very poor. My mom was probably the most important influence in my life by far. Very loving woman, but a very stressed woman. And under that stress, she drank alcohol and took prescription drugs. And when she did that, she became very violent. So I took the brunt of that and then figured out how to manage her emotions, basically. That's where all my beginning training really happened. And yet at the same time, she was loving. She pushed me. She believed in me. She wanted me to be something. So she influenced my life in so many beautiful ways. And then probably what changed my life the most, though, is my 4th father especially made it clear no one gives a damn about anybody else. We lived in what I thought was an upper class community or city, but we were on the other side of the tracks. It was lower middle class. We were, literally right by the railroad tracks where the worst of the worst lived, so to speak. And so we're kind of looked down on. And so it really looked like nobody cares. And then the thing that changed my whole life, the single event, was a knock on the door on Thanksgiving. We had no money, no food. When I say no food, we had crackers and peanut butter, but not a Thanksgiving dinner, right? And my dad mom are screaming each other through a door, and my dad had lost his job. You get the knock on the door, and I go open the door, and there's this tall guy standing there with 2 bags of groceries, 1 in each hand, and at his feet, he had an uncooked frozen turkey in a pan, And he said, is your father here? And I was like, just one moment, And I was like, it was Christmas morning. And so I go to my dad and I go, hey, Dad, there's someone at the door for you. And he goes, who is it? And I said, I don't know. It's for you. He goes, well, you answer. I said, I already did. It's for you. So he goes over there and I'm waiting like with such excitement for him to open the door. And he saw this man and he was not happy. He looked at this man before the guy said a word and he said, we don't take charity. And he went and slammed the door on the guy. But the man had leaned in because of the groceries and it hit his shoulder and it bounced off, which made my dad even madder. And they said, sir, he said, somebody knows you're having a tough time. Everyone has tough times. They want you to have this food for your family for Thanksgiving. He goes, I'm just the delivery guy. And my father said, we don't take charity. And he pushed the door again. But this time, because the guy's leaning, his foot now stepped in. It hit his foot and bounced off. And then now my dad's getting more fired up. And I'm standing looking at this whole thing. And it's like a car crash happening. And the guy said something to my dad. I thought my dad was going to punch him in the face. He didn't say it meanly. He said, sir, he said, he saw me. He said, don't make your family, suffer because of your ego. And I can still see it like yesterday. My dad's veins on both sides of his neck were just pumping and he was red as can be. And then he just dropped his shoulders. He took the groceries. He slammed it on the table and he slammed the door and he never even said thank you. It took me maybe a decade to eventually figure it out. It became a very useful distinction for me about how he and I process that day differently, because I believe there's 3 decisions you make every moment of your life. You're making them right now if you're listening to me, and so is your audience. The first one is, what are you going to focus on? You're going to be focused on what happened yesterday, what you're going to have for lunch, what I'm saying, how it relates to you. There are millions of things you can focus on. But you don't experience life. You experience the life you focus on. And most of us are distortion, deletion creatures. Our brains don't take it all in consciously. It's too much. So our brains delete things, we distort things, we generalize things so we can make it through our lives. And so if you don't control your focus, you react. And that day, my dad's focus was on the fact he did not fed his family. It wasn't hard to figure out. He said it over and over again after he slammed the door. And my focus was, wow, there's food. What a concept. I was excited. But the second decision you make every moment, the minute you focus on something, your brain has to figure out, what does this mean? Is this the end or the beginning? Is this person dissing me? Are they challenging me? Are they coaching me? Are they loving me? And whatever meaning you give it produces emotion. And out of that emotion, you make the third decision, what am I going to do? And that day, I know the meaning my dad did. It wasn't just that he didn't feed his family. It's that he was worthless. I can't even feed my family. And he muttered all this stuff continuously. But I took that as stranger's care. It completely violated everything I had experienced in my life up until that point. And my brain was like, if a stranger doesn't even want credit for this, and they fed my family on Thanksgiving, I got to care about strangers. And so what I decided to do is someday I'm going to do this for others. And so when I was 17, I went out and I didn't have a lot of money, but I was doing okay. And I went to a grocery store and I told the manager what happened in my life. And I said, I want to feed 2 families. Help me out. Give me a discount. And he gave me 10% off, and I thought, cheap bastard, but I took it. I had the most enjoyable shopping. I took 2 shopping carts and just filled it up for 2 families. And then I called this church, and I said, who do you know that needs help but won't ask for it, won't come for it? And they gave me 2 families' names. And so I wrote a little note. I just put, this is a gift from a friend. Everyone has tough times. I hope you have a beautiful Thanksgiving. And someday, if you can, pay this forward. I didn't use the word pay it forward. I said, do this for someone else. But now you look at this, pay it forward. And I put, love a friend. And then I realized I was going to the barrio area of the city. And I was like, maybe they don't speak English. So I had a friend of mine write in Spanish on the back. So I figured I could flip it over. And the first house I went to is a little tiny place. I knock on the door, and this woman about this tall, Hispanic woman, sees me and sees the food and screams, and then grabs my head and pulls it down and starts kissing me on the cheek. I said, no, delivery boy. And she said, and I pulled out the note and I flipped it over in Spanish, and she read it, and then she started to cry, and she started giving me kissing. I said, no, delivery boy. She goes, no, gift of God. And I'm trying not to cry. I'm just like, I feel it like it was yesterday still. And so, the door opened. It's a tiny little place, the size of your kitchen here, or your reminder of your kitchen. And I was so excited to set food down. All of a sudden I heard screams. And then next thing I know, I'm hit by one and then by another 4 boys. And one hit one leg, one hit the other. They saw the food. They went crazy. And I said, come help me. It had other stuff in the van. And when they saw the pumpkin pie, it was really over, and we brought all this food in, and it was time to go. And the father had left them, I found out later, 4 days before Thanksgiving with no money and no food. And I'm looking through the mirror and I just started crying uncontrollably. And I'm like, why am I crying so bad? This is such a beautiful moment. And then I just realized, my worst day of my life was really my best day. That the day that was the most painful to me, because that father is the one he adopted me. I carry his name. That I wouldn't be there that day.